Welcome to The Teacher's Story. I'm Jackie Scully. This is a podcast to elevate teacher voice. In this program, you will hear teachers sharing their journey into this profession and their ideas for education. I'm kicking it off Teacher Appreciation Week, which starts May 2nd. This is about honest, vulnerable, inspiring storytelling. It's a time and a space for teachers to share their ideas for the future of education. Teachers are beautiful beings who give their heart and soul to their community. They're innovators, they're inspirational, not only to children, but to the people around them. And they deserve to share their voice. So welcome to The Teacher's Story. Enjoy. Hi, welcome to The Teacher's Story. I'm Jackie Scully, and today we have Elizabeth Peterson with us, and I'm very excited because she is a social emotional learning expert with lots of experience. She has an arts integration specialist with degrees in education, music arts, leadership, and learning. She's in her 23rd year of teaching and 15th year hosting workshops and retreats and online courses, focusing on social emotional learning. And she has her program called The Inspired Classroom. I will be talking about more of her work towards the end and sharing her information in the show notes. So thank you, Elizabeth, for being on the show today.
Yay, Jackie. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk to you and get to know you more.
Great. So what was your inspiration to get into education?
Well, I was one of the very fortunate ones who just knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to teach. And I had a couple of diversions there for a little bit. I wanted to be a car mechanic when I was in middle school, and then I wanted to be an engineer there in early high school. But I just remember when I was in elementary school, looking up to my teachers. I thought they were pretty cool, and going home and teaching my stuffed animals. I was a super nerd who asked for a blackboard for Christmas and loved playing with the chalk. And I would teach my stuffed animals lyrics to Shout by Tears for Fears. I remember that distinctly. And
Wow,
I just, I just
it.
knew I really, I wanted to teach. And I got a little taste, an actual taste of it when I was in high school. I was part of like a group that would go into the elementary schools and teach about, drug and alcohol prevention and that kind of thing. And I was fortunate again to be able to go into my old elementary school and, and visit my classroom of the teachers that I really looked up to. And so it just, it just solidified it for me that I knew this was the direction where I really wanted to go.
That's so funny because a lot of times when I have guests on, they don't have such a similar experience as me. Like literally what you just explained is my early childhood. Most guests are like, oh, it just like did not think about it, or it came to me like later in life. But I did the same thing. I had a chalkboard in my basement and I was an only child until about almost 8 years old. So I don't know if that was like the same for you if you're an only child.
I am also an only child.
So, I had a brother later on, but for most of my, younger childhood, I was on my own. And so I did the whole thing with the stuffed animals and dolls, and I had my chalkboard. I loved chalk. And I would just teach lessons. And then I didn't have that experience as a high school student to work with elementary school students in that way. And that's really neat, and especially to see the teachers you had and then be there as a mentor to those students. But I did camp counseling and I worked with like the elementary school age group. And that's kind of something I originally was wanting to get into. And then I kind of went into secondary as I knew I loved like social sciences and really wanted to hone, my craft in that. But that's so funny. Like it's very similar.
Yeah.
What was some of your early teaching experiences like, if you want to go back to the very beginning or kind of like the earlier part? Because I think there's always like fun stories or lessons or just obviously challenges when you're a new teacher, but anything that kind of like pops out to you.
Well, all right. So there's a couple things. So I remember my first long-term sub job. So it was before I got my actual job, which happened to end up being in the same school, but it was a fifth grade. And it was in the springtime. And I remember being in the interview with the principal, and he said, okay, so I know you like fifth grade. That's my absolute favorite grade. He said, but that we're just getting into the sex ed part of it, right? Like when
Yeah.
we
I
divide the
remember
kids
that.
and
Yep.
you're gonna, you'll have to be, part of that. And I went, oh my God, that sounds like so much fun. And I really enjoyed it because, the boys left the room and the girls stayed in and we just started chit chatting about all kinds of stuff. And then they
Yeah.
flip flopped and I thought, oh, this is great. I love this.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but then my very first actual job was in second grade, and I was there for 2 years. And I actually joke, I kind of like joke about it with some of my colleagues nowadays because when we reminisce about how it was teaching over 20 years ago, like I
Mhm.
could tell my second graders, 7-year olds, to do a writing assignment. They would go to their seats, they would write. And I could actually go to my desk and correct the papers like from the day before.
Mm.
And, maybe a kid would raise their hand and I'd call them over and we'd talk about whatever that kid was writing about. But it was just so different
Mm.
than if I ask I currently teach third grade. I've had a number of years in fourth grade, been kind of looping the last few years or so. And you just can't do that now.
Mm.
And it's beyond, I grew to learn, okay, walk around and engage with the students as they're working and that kind of thing. But yeah, that those days of like a student sitting
Mhm.
doing their work until it's completed is just kind of
Their
a,
attention.
a thing
Yeah.
of the past.
Yeah. So
Really
I
is.
I've seen that even in high school, but now I'm curious to ask about like the differences from the beginning to now.
Yeah.
Because they're so young and like second, third, grade, I'm sure even at that age, they are already on like phones and tablets. So do you think a lot of it has to do
Mm.
with like constantly being on devices where their attention span is maybe really short? Like, is it you have to redirect a lot like in the classroom now that than before you said that they could kind of work independently for a period of time?
Yeah, well, I absolutely think that the introduction to devices and phones and just the attention span on regular TV, which they're not even, they're not watching that. They're watching
Yeah.
all kinds of shows, like this immediate satisfaction of what you can get in the palm of your hand absolutely
Yeah.
contributes to that. Yeah, and even I remember very recently I've asked students to write a story, just kind of like for fun, just to kind of take a little break and just have them write a story for fun. I gave them a quick little image prompt, and a number of the kids wrote the story in like just talking back and forth. And all I could think of was how many of my students now love to read graphic novels, and there's no like, I don't want to say substance, but there's no like prose. It's all
Mm.
it's all like speech bubbles and this, and that. And so there's like a little bit of a change in how some of the students are writing when I
Mm.
just ask them to write a quick little story. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting.
Everything's been scaled down to bites. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
you can go from what you're talking about with, like, graphic novels and how to engage, like, readers today to I was even just having a conversation about, like, just podcasting in general. I went to, like, a podcaster mixer. It was really fun, and they were talking about, like, "Are you on YouTube? Do you do this and that?" And they're like, "You know what's really, like, going right now is the YouTube Shorts because it's competing with TikTok, it's competing with Instagram Reels because
Yep.
everything is about narrowing it down."
Yep.
And they even say, like, with podcasting, like, if you're able to keep it really condensed and short until you really get a following of listeners, and then maybe you can extend your stories. But I'm like, I'm here to tell a story. Like, I can't do this in like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. If you got to be like I'm keeping to my authentic mission and self, but it's all about grab attention, keep it for a second, move on to the next thing.
Mm,
And I worry just to people in general, but especially looking at childhood development, like what is that going to do to our brains over time? Like, how are we able to
mm,
actually then sit and have a real deep conversation with someone? Like, how do
mhm.
we actually then engage with people and have a real human connection? What does that do later down the road with having relationships? having really good friendships. And this will get
Mhm.
into later on, you talking about social emotional learning, like
Yeah.
being able to have partnerships and collaboration where it takes time, it takes meaning, like you got to work through things. Also, like how you dissect information, because everything now is, again, quick news on Twitter,
Yep.
sound bites, all of that. And people are very reactive because they don't want to spend the time to maybe click to an article or something, or maybe read an article that counters information or go fact checking. Like the attention span is so small. So do you think
Oh, yeah.
there's anything that you are seeing, since this is probably now a known issue in schools, that what do we do to maybe like help kids with their attention span?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I don't know that I have the answers, but I will say that, just in my work with giving students artistic experiences in the classroom, I think that that can actually help because and sometimes you have to be, so I have this thing called SEAL, social emotional artistic learning, and one of the foundations of it is that you really need to be explicit with how, why you're doing things the way you might be doing it, and how you might be teaching a student how you might be teaching it. And so I find this even, like even just this week in school, it's right before the
Yeah.
holidays. We might be doing some like coloring pages or, just something fun. And I have students that can't finish a coloring page.
Wow.
And it's like, and I will turn them around and I'll say, no, no, no. You need to actually work on this. This is working on your fine motor skills. This is
Yep.
working on your attention span. This is working on your focus. I didn't just give you this coloring page because,
Hmm.
I want you to have a break from the world. I want you to be able to have a little
Yeah.
break, but I also want you to work on these important skills. And so, excuse me. So I really do believe that we have the opportunity as teachers to kind of explain that to the students
Hmm.
at any level, middle school, high school, to say, your attention span should be longer. You should be able to have a good conversation with a student. And if we need to practice that in here, let's practice that in
Hmm.
here.
Hmm.
You should be able to see a project through fruition, and then at the end, give yourself an opportunity to reflect on it, because
Hmm.
that is when you're going to really come up with some good quality, and that's going to lead to better success for you down the road. So while I don't have the answers in
Hmm.
society, in our
Yeah.
little classroom
Yeah.
bubbles, maybe we can do our little part to try and help students with that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I think we can at least feel like we have agency in our classrooms when we see this as a whole big societal problem. But I've even done a little bit of that intentional, like, conversation. I mean,
Hmm.
again, you're talking to younger students, but even high school students need this
Yeah.
kind of conversation.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I started doing these thinking journals. I found all of these composition books, like piles of them, in this closet. We have like a supply closet where you can like get markers and things for the classroom, and nobody really uses composition books anymore. They were
Yeah.
like the thin ones that you used to like write in for like test taking.
Hmm.
And I tried to get the non-blue books because blue books are like, I'm taking a test. So I found like a tan colored one. No one was using them. I'm like, all right, I'm going to grab one for each student that I have. And once a week, sometimes it's once every other week, depending on our schedule. At the end of the week, I tried to say, okay, we're going to do like half hour, just like a long period of time
Wow.
with the thinking journal. And part of it is writing and part of it's also discussing. So like, let's write for like 10 minutes, maybe pause, and then we'll go into like partner, share, group discussion, and then out to the class. Sometimes if I have the time, I'll go around and have each student share something. But I talked to them at the beginning of the year saying, we're going to do this and not be on the smart board, not be on devices, not be on the
Mm.
computer, like just a half hour out of the
Mhm.
week of classes. We will just do this. And I think we can do it. And some of
Yeah.
them really look forward to it. And I noticed by the time we were running into getting ready for the holidays and the end of, getting ready for winter break, I did it like on one of the last days and they were already like, can I just be on my phone? Like, I just want to be done. And
Yeah.
so like, I'm like, all right, let's just do this for 10 minutes and try to have a
Yeah.
little bit of a conversation. But yes, then you can do it because they were just like ready for school to end. So I'll see how long it lasts, but you have to be like really intentional about it and
You
have those
do.
conversations with them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
consistency. That's another thing that I
Yeah.
stress with
Yeah.
all my SEAL teachers is just make sure that even if it flops the first, I don't know, 5 times,
Yeah.
being consistent, because you know that journaling is going to be so beneficial for the students. It's like a grounding thing
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
instead of like you can almost, it may not look like it when you're looking at the body language of someone who's on their phone, but it's kind of just a little bit more spastic. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
being able to put the pencil to paper can be very grounding, and having those conversations and taking a moment to listen to others.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know.
big skills.
So I feel like a lot of this too, and the work that you're doing has really been important during the pandemic. So if you want to share a little bit about how the pandemic, being a teacher, maybe the work you're doing in social emotional learning and the
Mhm.
workshops you do for other teachers, anything you want to share about kind of from 2020 to now, like what your takeaways are from this time.
Sure. So I was one of the few teachers in my district actually that ended up teaching from my home the entire year of
Oh,
that
wow.
school year.
Wow.
And I had 2 to 3 different like class makeups during the year because of how things changed and shifted. And so but what I thought was so cool was that even though my classroom, like on a Zoom, all the different faces on my screen, even though those faces like did a complete turnaround a couple of times during that year, I really felt connected to them.
Mm,
And I thought that was so fascinating because um we had our faces face to face, and of course I was teaching third grade, and then they switched me to second grade half partway through the year. So they were pretty okay with having their cameras on, which I know
yeah.
was not the case for so
Yeah.
many teachers, especially in high
Yeah.
school and probably middle school too. But having their faces there and doing some of the SEL and SEAL activities that I would face to face, I was quite pleased with how I was able to translate
Mm,
some of those experiences, even on the screen, um, to what we were doing when we were on our screens together. So I thought that was really, really neat, being able to create visual art and actually have time together. We could kind of watch each other work
mhm,
and
yeah,
do some creation, do some writing, and then share. We did do some journaling.
mhm,
I put some of my student check-ins online, whether it was in the chat or like in a Google form.
mhm,
um, and so I guess my biggest takeaway, and this will sound pretty it'll sound pretty run of the mill because I'm sure a lot of people felt this, and
mhm,
maybe we're sick of hearing it now, but
yeah,
the whole idea of connection and building relationships,
yeah,
and it's being really kind of like forced down our throats now about this whole
yeah,
idea of, well, building relationships so
yeah, yeah.
important. Yeah, we all know that, but it really is.
And, like, how do you do it well, right?
Yeah,
Like, then it's the
yeah,
actual strategy. So do you wanna go
so
into,
true.
like, some of the, type of workshops or lessons that you do with your students? Or it could be something that you did in the pandemic or just something in general?
Yeah. So one of my favorite, actually, this is a teacher favorite of that comes out of SEAL, and it's a great connection maker, not just between the teacher and the students, but among the students themselves. And it's called Friendly Friday.
Mm,
And for me as an elementary teacher, it came out of like, Friday afternoons being crazy and
yeah,
just like, nothing was working. Silent reading wasn't working. Me reading aloud to the students wasn't really working. Having them do free draw at the end of the day, that wasn't working. And so I came up with this Friendly Friday idea, which gave some purpose to what
mm,
the students were doing at the end of a Friday afternoon. And so basically what it is the students will get the name of another classmate, and then they secretly take that name, and then they take, maybe some predetermined materials. Like my go-to is like an index card,
Mhm,
making it really
mhm,
simple.
mhm.
Take an index card, or maybe ask them to go into the recycling bin and see what they can find, or whatever it is, and then make something for that student. And then at
Oh,
the very end of the day, we give it out to the other students in
and
the
do
classroom.
they know who it is or no? Is the
They
idea
don't.
it's
They
anonymous?
don't know
Yeah.
until no until they are given it, and then they know who it
Or
was
yeah.
that made it for them. And we go through, like, messaging, and what is a
Mhm.
friendly message, and how can you make something that will actually make that person smile and end their week really
Oh, I
nicely.
love that.
Yeah, it's such a nice thing to do. And I work with teachers pre-K through 12,
Mhm.
and even beyond. I have some teachers that work with adults and
Mhm.
things like that. And there's always great modifications and adaptations that
Mhm.
you can do, whether you see your students every day like I do, or you see them once a week. We go into some real great ideas of modifying it so that it
Mhm.
can work for all teachers, because
Yeah.
it's such a nice thing for students to
Mhm.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a way to really build community in the sense that everyone matters, and it's not just
Mm.
like do something nice for someone that's your friend, but like we are all in this community together, experiencing this learning, time together. So to do something for someone maybe you normally wouldn't, it just
Hmm.
like also feels really special. So I don't know if you have an
Yes.
idea on the top of your head, and maybe I'm just picking your brain so I could bring
Uh-oh.
something back to school. I teach
Yes.
11th and 12th grade, and we have an advisory program and
Ooh.
we meet once a week on Mondays. So we actually start the week. Sometimes we will be with them on a Friday, like if we don't have anything for the assembly period. But any like fun activities or lessons for maybe that age group for 11th and
Yes.
12th grade?
So kind of going along the Friendly Friday idea.
Yeah.
So the first thing you have to remember is, don't let the name fool you. It doesn't it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be on a Friday, right? It can
Yeah.
be any.
Right.
Even I sometimes don't do it on a Friday. I'll do it on a different day, whatever works for us. But yeah, so if you see, your students for a short amount of time on one day,
Hmm.
what a great way to connect them,
Hmm.
and build their community, because they're probably doing together like the whole year, I'm
Hmm.
assuming, or
Hmm.
maybe
Oh
even
yeah.
all 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're with each other for a whole year
Hmm.
and the same grade of so I have 11th and 12th graders in an advisory. And so
Cool.
the 12th graders now I've had them since 11th grade. So they've known each other for two
Gotcha.
years and they've known me for 2 years. And then we get new juniors in and it just keeps going like that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
something quick, like, if you wanted to do the exchange thing where they're literally like picking names out of a hat, you could do
Yeah.
that and just have them do a post-it message,
Mm,
you know.
yeah.
Excuse me. And I should say, like, the first couple times I do like to collect what
Yeah.
you're
So you
just to
know what's
kind of
on
double
there.
check it.
Yeah.
You never
Someone being
know.
funny. Yeah, especially
Yeah,
teenagers.
yeah, exactly. But even like I've had students write something, and it's just unintentionally, like, that person might not take it the right way, or
Mm,
we need to reword this so that it sounds right. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
are actually training and guiding the students to
yeah.
write a nice friendly message. And have examples on the board. I mean,
Yes, yeah.
even for older kids, I think that
Yeah.
that's important, because they might, sit there at a blank post-it note and go, what, I don't know. But you can
Yeah.
also do like a jar, like have them
Yeah.
write friendly messages and then put them in a jar. And then it's not necessarily for a specific person, which
Yeah.
could be kind of weird and awkward at first
Mhm.
for, older kids that don't may or may not really know each other. And then they can just pick it out, and then it is kind of like an anonymous type
Okay.
of thing. Or they could
Yeah.
sign their name to it, and
Yeah.
then it kind of gives them that. It is nice when they sign their name to it, because then it
Yeah.
gives them that, like, oh, I didn't even know that person was in here, or, oh, that's that person's name, you know?
Yeah.
Um, because I think a lot of kids can get lost
I like that
when they
idea.
move to the
Yeah.
big high school.
They do. Yes. And I think this is great. Like, I mean, I can do this even when we go back in January, but I think this is great for like even the beginning of the year when you're getting like some new juniors into that group. And so
Yeah.
maybe they could be the seniors. I kind of like let them lead the way, but if they don't know each other yet, like maybe writing on those post-it notes, like, what do you really appreciate about this advisory? And like, what do you
Mm,
want to build this year with like these new students coming in? And then
yeah.
like later have that, okay, now let's write, now they've gotten to know each other. Let's write messages to each other. I did something recently that was one of our, we have this like menu of activities, and I thought leading into the holidays, because we do like heavier lessons too.
Mm,
So eventually I want to get into like building civil discourse and how do we have conversations with like polarized views and whatnot, because they are older and that's
mm,
something we're trying to really practice at school.
mhm.
But leading into the holidays, I wanted to keep it more about community. And so we did a speed dating round. And so they had to pair up with, a different advisee. And I have 9 this year. Usually I have 10. So like I was part of it too. So someone had to pair up with me. And I said, you could ask any questions, obviously appropriate questions, nothing that's going to be so personal that someone's like, I don't even know how to answer that. So
Oh
keep
my
it kind of
gosh.
light. So maybe like, what's your favorite tradition over the holidays? Or like, what's your favorite thing to eat? Or, travel location or whatever. And then they had like a minute and they had to really think quick and like answer it. So there was no like stalling or like, I don't know. And they both had to answer and they came up with the questions. And then they had to move to like the next one. So someone
Uh-huh.
stayed stationary and then like the other person like moved around so that they got to each person. And that was fun. They really kind of got into that and liked that. And it gave everyone an opportunity to talk to each other when
Yeah.
normally it might not be like that. But I like this like kind of shout out to each other too on like maybe like
Mhm.
a kind of a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um, because sometimes it can be, I have like one advisee in mind that I feel like stands out in the group and
Mhm.
also stands out, I think, in his class, like junior class. And he comes to me a lot, like we have a good rapport, but I could feel this sense that he's not very connected to
Mhm.
maybe like everyone or like not that many people. He has like a core group of friends, but kind of feels a little bit of maybe like an outsider. So I think having this home base of advisory and giving shout outs to each other can really build confidence,
Yeah.
and a place where you feel you belong somewhere. And I think that's
Mhm.
kind of like the whole point, right?
It is. Yeah. And you know what? I'll tag you on that word belonging because that
Mm,
really, there's a whole, the build relationships, the
yep.
connection, but it really is about making sure that students feel that belonging at least in one place.
Yeah,
And that can really make or break
it
a
is.
kid.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, that is something we're really trying to tap in and make sure we are really paying attention to our kids. It's harder to do in bigger schools. Like I went to a very big
Mm,
high school. Now I'm at a very small school. Um, and I can say I know every single one of my students, like maybe
mm-hmm,
not the ins and outs of them, but like I know them and I know what sports teams they're on. I know what other extracurriculars are part of. Um, but when you have like a teacher who has like 150 students and maybe they don't have an advisory program. Like I didn't have that when I was in high school.
mm,
When I taught in public school, I never was in a program like that. It's very easy for kids to feel like they're just a number and they can fall through the cracks and like don't feel
mm-hmm.
that sense of belonging. So
Yeah.
kind of like going into the last part I was talking about, like how can we improve education and what do you see for the future, especially coming out of this pandemic time, maybe with the
Mhm.
work you're doing, maybe also looking at like how schools can change or even like how teacher respect can change because we're seeing a lot of teachers leaving the field.
Oh yeah.
And I think a sense of belonging even for faculty. It's not
Mm,
just students, but I think
mhm.
like we got to take care of our teachers, our faculty as well. So
Yeah.
any ideas you'd like to share for the future?
Well, gee, that was loaded. You get a lot of stuff going on in there. And I wanted to say because you were talking about being that advisor teacher for the 2 years, when I was teaching middle school music, I taught general music. So some kids I saw 2 years, and I also was able to like coach basketball there, and I did chorus. So some of the students
Yeah.
I was able to work with for 3 solid years.
Mm,
And it gave me a different a different role in the school, and also a different perspective, not just me looking at the students in a different perspective because I was teaching music, but the students saw me as a different type of
yeah.
teacher, right? And that allowed me to kind of approach certain kids in a different way. And I think that we can't underestimate anyone in a
Mm,
school. whether, regardless of their role in the school, whether it's teacher, custodian,
Hmm.
secretary,
Hmm.
school counselor, just like everybody has such a, a an opportunity
Hmm.
to be that person for a student, and you just never know who's going to click with who.
Yeah, it's
So
so
I
true.
think it's so important for people to, or administrators and even, colleagues to just remember that.
Hmm.
I know I'm fortunate to work in a place where I think that is acknowledged and
That's great.
seen, which is
Yeah.
amazing. But I know there are other places where it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's happening in education right now? Yeah, kids' needs are increasing.
They are. They are for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, like
Yes.
academic, obviously.
Hmm.
As a third grade teacher this year, this particular grade across the country has been one of the most hard hit in
Oh,
terms of
wow.
academics
Yeah.
and emotional.
Hmm.
And so that's been a huge challenge.
Because they were in first grade when it
They
all,
were in kindergarten.
oh my gosh, yes. So
Yeah.
this is the really crucial age. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, so those needs are increasing, but even before the pandemic, I mean, the social emotional stuff was really starting to creep in to
Hmm.
the classrooms. And, if I were to answer, what should we be doing to improve education? Hands down, we need to invest in our teachers
Hmm.
and get them the support and the professional development that they need and deserve in order to approach all of these students' needs
Hmm.
and take care of themselves in ways that isn't sometimes we have like mandated self-care. I hear that a lot from
Yes,
the
I
many
know.
teachers I talk to. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But to be given the space and the
Mhm.
time to do your job the way that you need to, and then also be given the tools and the strategies and the professional development to really integrate the social emotional pieces.
Mhm.
Um, and not pile more stuff on.
Yeah.
A lot of schools are adding programs to their curriculum, which is not a bad thing. But I think what really is missing is teachers need to understand what social emotional
Mhm.
skills are, what they are,
Mhm.
what they should look like, and what's age appropriate for the students that are in front of them, and how to really integrate that into their teaching and their content areas,
Yeah.
and help their students through their content, because that's the most natural and where we'll get the most mm, I don't want to say it like this, but bang for your buck, right? This is
Yeah.
where you're
Yeah.
gonna get it.
Oh,
So
I for sure. More than
yeah.
just more content in like subject areas. I think if you invest more in these types of professional development programs and really give teachers time, I think that's
Mhm.
like essential. Like if I could just talk to, you know, school boards and superintendents, right, across the
Yeah.
country, salary is the first thing that really needs to be addressed, and like the second thing like with it is time,
Mm,
because if you pile on more, like here the research says do this, research says do this, and then we're actually not adding any more time in your schedule to do it,
right.
or when we do like a professional development, it's like squeezed in to all the other meetings and all the other stuff you have to do, and we then think that all of a sudden you're going to be like inspired, like to be like, wow, great, I'm going to take this on and I'm going to make it the best it's going to be, when I have all these other things I have to do and no one gave me time to
Yeah.
really do it. And like, if anyone listening in other industries want to think about how you are an inspired person and how then you inspire other people, if you are working a 9-hour day and maybe only have like a half hour lunch if you're lucky,
Mhm,
and sometimes it's really hard to even go to the bathroom,
mhm,
and then you have free periods, but they can also be used for meetings,
mm,
meetings with students, meetings with the administrators, meetings with other teachers, parents, whatever that
mm.
is. And then you have a new initiative that
Yay.
wants to like help kids, inspire kids, right? And you are just drained at the end of the day. How
Mhm.
are you actually able to be inspiring kids? Like, how can you actually be inspired yourself? Like, inspiration comes from a place of having some time to really process and think and be like engaged with like a new initiative or idea, and then
Mhm.
be able to collaborate and talk to people and bounce ideas off each other
Mhm.
and have more of a free kind of space with that, and then go for it, you know? So like I always say, we need more time before school starts, and paid time.
Paid
So
time. Yes.
not adding more to your meeting time the opening days before school starts, but if you have like, we really know this is a dire concern with students today. Like we really need to like work on social emotional learning and embed it in all of the classes.
Mhm.
And we really want to diversify curriculum, and we really want to make sure all voices and perspectives are in your curriculum. We're going to give you this time with your department, right?
Mhm.
Or if you want to do interdisciplinary with like the 11th grade teachers, the third grade teachers, whatever that is, and we're going to pay you. So this might be in mid-August or whenever. I know schools
Right.
start at different times. We start usually go back at the end of August. So we're going to set a time for a week. Maybe it's only a few days for professional development. We really want to hit this initiative. It's really important to us. We want
Mhm.
buy-in. We're going to pay you, and we're going to pay
Mhm.
you well, right? We're
Mhm.
going to pay you like what you would get paid, your teacher salary to
It
do
sounds
this.
so crazy,
I
but it's
know.
like,
Anybody else in
what?
any other industry, if they were asked to do more and come in and do more, they'd be like, okay, so what am I getting paid for this? Right?
Mhm.
Almost like a
Mhm.
contract like deal. Like, okay, what am I getting paid for this project that you're putting in front of me? And
Right.
so ultimately, I think we need to get paid how people get paid in other industries. You want to do
Mhm.
something that's extra or more, you need to get paid for it.
Yeah.
And I think teachers need to stop saying yes to everything. You know,
Yes. Yes,
and
because
like,
we're not.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that some people outside of education don't realize that we're not paid all year. We can choose to
right,
have our
right,
paychecks spread through the summer,
true,
but we are not paid during the
right.
summer.
They think that's
We
just like the set salary through the whole
right.
summer. I'm like, no, that's a choice. Cause like I'm getting on my contract, I'm getting a salary that's a 10-month salary. Cause technically
Yes.
by the time you end with your closing days and opening days, it's 10,
Yeah.
it's 2 months that you're off.
Mhm.
And we actually don't have that choice. We just do get paid throughout the summer, but I have been
Mhm.
at schools where you did have a choice, but
Yeah.
you're getting paid for 10 months. You're not getting paid for 12 months. You're getting paid for 10
Right.
months. And then you can decide how you want to, spread it out. And that, teachers get jobs sometimes in the summer too, but they also you need those 2 months to continually like restore, but also like a lot of professional development is offered in the summer.
Mhm.
And all of that I've done a week here, a week here, a week here. I don't get paid for that. I do that.
Right.
My school pays for me to go,
That's
but
good.
then I'm giving my time and my
Mhm.
energy. And then there's this, because they're paying for that and investing, there's this expectation that obviously you're going to do something with it in the classroom.
Yeah.
But you're putting in that time. And sometimes they're like full days for a whole week. And it's like that should also be a paid thing too, because I'm like working in the summer.
Right.
But it's all seen as like it's an opportunity. They're all
Yeah.
just opportunities. But part of, you know, investing in education is investing in just like paying people.
Yeah.
And if you want to put the profession up on the level of some other, areas like lawyers, scientists, business people, all of these other industries that get paid very well, then yes, salary is part of it too. Because I've talked to a lot of people about respect is like how we are treating people, but money is part of it. We are in a capitalistic society, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, you got to get
Yeah.
paid for the extra stuff.
Yeah. But I love what you said about getting inspired,
Yeah.
because that is my website, the Inspired Classroom, right?
Yes.
And our the logo is, you need to get inspired to be inspiring.
Yes.
And it's
So
not that
true.
you're getting inspired. You have to go out there and find what's going to inspire you. I think that
Yeah.
is something that a lot of teachers want to do. Maybe they don't get the money to do it, but
Right.
you know, you, there's two things, schools need to invest in their teachers more,
Mhm.
and teachers need to get to a point where they're like, no, this is what's going to get me inspired. You
Yeah.
want me to have
Yeah.
a classroom of, motivated and engaged students. This is what's going to help me get there.
Yep.
And so, that's why I love providing what I call teacher-centered professional development, where it's
Mm.
really focused on the teacher, teaching the teacher strategies that make sense to them, giving them the opportunity to really try them out so that it becomes part of their experience.
Yeah.
And when they get those experiences, then they're just more apt to
True.
use it in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm glad you brought up the whole inspiring thing, because that's really
Yes.
really something that a lot of teachers need to kind of remember,
Remember,
so that
because you
they
go
can
into it that with that initiative, like you go in going,
exactly.
I am inspired to mentor young people. And there's an energy there. Like I just
Yes.
interviewed a second year teacher recently, and I could just, even though she went through the pandemic as her first job, she was inspired and she knows that she wants to make a difference. And to
Hmm.
keep that energy going for someone who's going to continue to be in this profession, you need to offer those professional development experiences and say, we're going to give you the time. We're going to invest in you. We're going to give you, we'll pay you for the time that you build like a program you want to bring to the school. We are really excited about this. If you're really excited about it, we're going to do it. Because ultimately, in this climate, if you're like, we really are excited about this and we want you to do it, but we don't have any time or money for you, then people are like, no, I'm not going to do it,
Yeah,
unless you're
status
forcing
quo,
me to do
man.
it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
teachers are still people who want to be inspired and want to try new things. They do.
Hmm.
They just
Yes.
are at this point in this juncture, they want to make sure they're getting the respect they deserve by given the time and money to do these things. And
Hmm.
so ultimately, it all needs to come together. And then if we do that, the way that they invest in teachers in some other countries and other places, you're going to get quality teachers. And I'm not saying there is like just bad teachers everywhere, but if you don't invest in people, you don't pay them well, you're not giving them great professional development they're excited about with the time to do it properly, you're going to get kind of like burnt out, jaded people doing
Yes.
their job. And all
Yep.
they're thinking about is, I need to just get through the day to then go take care of my family. And like, maybe I'm just making ends meet and then I got to go to another job. So I
Hmm.
really can like support my family.
Hmm.
And then you have a bunch of uninspired adults. How are they supposed to inspire children? So,
Right.
like again, like school boards, superintendents, local state governments, even the federal government, eventually we need to have them start investing in the educational program. Because
Hmm.
I was just reading somewhere in the New York Times, there was like an opinion essay out about the salaries have literally been like just like
Flatlined.
flatlined for like
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
And the number of teachers leaving the profession has dramatically dropped since the 1970s.
Hmm.
Um, and that's only going to be more so. But I do believe this pandemic, and with a lot of teachers leaving, plus the whole baby boomer generation and people retiring combined with that,
Hmm.
we are at a crisis, and it should be a wake up call that I'm starting to hear. We're going to invest in the salaries. We're going to be giving, higher salaries. And like there was even a bill proposed in Congress recently for like a minimum, much higher salary for teachers across the board. Like we need to invest in them. So,
Mm.
okay, the ideas are there. They're talking about it. It's in the news more. So now
Hmm.
let's just put the money, there.
Hmm.
I know there's so many other things to pay for, but I would love to just see one election cycle. Give me one election cycle that we are going to talk about education and funding it, just like we talk about so many other things, because it doesn't get talked about.
I know it doesn't. It does get kind of skimmed over quite a bit.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
work that you're doing is fabulous. And it's exactly what we need
Oh,
in
thank you.
schools. And yeah, we need to invest in that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make our teachers happy with some good quality professional development. You'll get some happy kids on the other
I mean,
side.
I like really, when I get like a really good professional development opportunity, I'm excited about it. Like I will put in
Yes.
the time. And if I'm given the time properly, and it's an investment, like I do get excited about it.
Mhm.
I think we got to bring that back because I think in the time of like summer 2020, summer 2021, there was a lot of like, we need to just train teachers to do virtual and hybrid. And so that
Right.
was the professional development, which was like,
Right.
we had to just do it. It was
Yeah.
part of our job and we had to do it as best as we could. But that
Mhm.
wasn't like exciting. It wasn't just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm really into this. Like, yeah, it was like innovative and new technologies. I think it was like kind of exciting for a little bit. And then you're just like, I'm over it. Like
Yeah.
I'm over the Zoom thing. I'm over all the, tech devices and like the new educational like tech programs. Like it's great to embed some of those tools, but then now we're talking about let's kind of get back to the basics,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
attention span, how to have a conversation, how to just like do a task,
Uh-huh.
complete a task.
Yep. Yep. And the arts and the creative process will certainly help with
Yes.
that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share? Just what you do, your work that you're doing, or things that, ideas that you have for yourself for the future before we end here?
Sure. So, I really have been focusing a lot outside of the classroom, focusing a lot on SEAL and getting teachers into the SEAL courses that I have because they are so beneficial to so many teachers. We
Mhm.
talk about mindset. We talk about strategies that are integrated and embedded into their classroom. And of course, we also talk about all the wonderful connections between the arts and all the competencies that go with
Mm,
social emotional development.
mhm,
And it just really equips teachers, and it's teacher centered, of course.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
the teachers are going through and trying all these things out for themselves. So it's kind of like this um, layer of their own creative self-care through
mhm,
the
mhm.
courses, which I absolutely love hearing feedback from other teachers about. And then they're doing it with their students and just getting to build those connections, build those safe learning communities that they really want in their classrooms, and really helping their kids.
Yeah.
And bonus, they're teaching their content
Yeah,
because
doing it
their
at the
kids
same
are coming
time.
in
Yeah.
to the right kind of environment that the teachers are really providing for themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I invite any of your listeners to check it out. So I'm at The Inspired Classroom for my website, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of The Inspired Classroom. And
Okay.
if you want to jump to all the good SEAL stuff, social emotional artistic learning, you can get there. And also at teachseal.com. I've got free resources there. I get a nice free workshop to
Oh,
kind of get
wow.
the 3 secrets to integrating the arts
Mhm,
with SEL to get people kind of getting thinking in the right direction if it's something that they're interested in. And yeah, so those are some of the things that I have to offer other teachers, and I just absolutely love doing it.
Oh, I just sense that energy from you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. I'm going to put your websites and information in the show notes. I really enjoyed talking with you today, Elizabeth, and the
Oh,
work that
thanks,
you're
Jackie.
doing. And you've been in this industry for so long,
Yeah.
and you're still full-time teaching and
Yeah.
doing this work and these
Hmm.
workshops and PD for teachers. You're an inspiration,
Oh, thank
to
you.
me, and I'm sure for other teachers that are listening. And so thank you so much.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thanks, Jackie. It was great talking to you.
Well, have a great day. Bye.
Yes, you too. Bye bye.